In this documentary that you're about to see, we're not chasing ghosts. We're chasing after the ghost of one specific person, and he's buried right here. Dean Corll, aka the real-life Candyman. He was an infamous serial killer from Texas who enacted one of the worst mass murder sprees in United States history at the time. It was actually the deadliest murder spree at the time that this happened. August 8th, 1973, the day that he was killed, he actually was murdered himself. Now, at the end of this documentary, we're going to be attempting to talk to Dean himself, but for now, Dean, if you're out there, as we follow your footsteps and we try to retrace your path, see why you did this. You were murdered before we could interview you or anybody could talk to you and see why you did all this. Why don't you come out, follow us, and let's have a conversation. You got a lot of explaining to do. This is the real-life Candyman.
This entire story of sadistic slayings would almost appear to be fiction, scripted with the full intention of shocking readers over and over again. It's that hard to believe. So many lives involved, so many killed over such a long period of time, and all of it going undetected. But it's not fiction. It's very real. A deadly conspiracy now listed as one of the most horrifying crimes in this century. An innocent-looking Pasadena home, but some of the people who went in were carried out in plastic bags. They had been murdered. Death in most cases came after the victims had been subjected to various sex acts and torture. The victims were all boys in the early to mid-teens who allegedly had been lured into a death trap by this young man, 17-year-old Elmer Wayne Henley. It was Henley who unveiled this secret of mass killings and led police to the graves of the dead. Henley called the police to the home of Dean Corll. He said he killed that Pasadena resident. Henley said the 34-year-old Corll had talked about killing several young men and burying them in this boat storage in South Houston. Henley said he and two other young people were intended victims Wednesday morning. At that time, they had passed out at Corll's house after an all-night party.
I woke up and he was clamping handcuffs on me. I was laying on my stomach. The other two were on their stomach and they were handcuffed and their feet were tied. I can't remember whether he tied my feet afterwards or they were tied when I woke up. I'd torture him if he'd let me go.
Was he gonna, would he want you to kill them then?
To begin with, he wanted to kill me. He was mad because I brought the chick over there.
For most of Wednesday night, lawmen continued to unearth bodies. All supposedly young boys, early to mid-teens, all had their hands tied, the bodies wrapped in plastic. Lime had been poured over the victims to help decompose the bodies. It did a more than adequate job. Bits and pieces of skeletons were removed time and time again. In some cases, flesh clung to bones like jelly. The stench inside that shed was almost overpowering. Those with weak stomachs stayed out.
How would you classify this series of crimes?
Just like I said a while ago, hell of a sadistic type of a clown that'd pull something like this.
And you think most of these victims are young boys?
I'm pretty reasonably sure they are. The reports that we have, missing persons, are all a bunch of kids, 13, 14, 15 years old.
When the digging was finally completed in this shed, 17 bodies had been recovered. Dean Corll had always been prompt in paying his rent on this boat stall, which he had for nearly 3 years. Recently, he had been politely asking the owners if they didn't have another stall for rent. He said his was getting too crowded.
Dean Corll, 33, electrician and ex-Marine. Inside Dean's house, the naked victims are handcuffed to this plywood board at gunpoint. The floor is covered with vinyl sheets to catch their blood. The stereo is turned up to drown out their screams.
Hey guys, it's Colin here. I've been researching, editing, writing, and hosting Murder in America, the podcast that I host with my fiancée Courtney for a while now, but in my opinion, it's hard to find a case that's more disturbing than that of Dean Corll, the real Candyman. Now, keep in mind the movie Candyman has nothing to do with this case. In the movie Candyman, the Candyman himself is the spirit of a man who was unjustly killed years prior, who now returns to this world in the form of an urban legend, killing anyone who says his name 5 times in the mirror. While this is a good scary concept and makes for a frightening film, the real-life crimes of the Houston Candyman are, in my opinion, much more disturbing than anything found in any of the Candyman films. Dean Corll was born on Christmas Eve 1939 in Indiana. His parents fought frequently when Dean was a child and eventually divorced. This led Dean to become a shy, introspective kid. The family eventually moved to Texas, where Dean's mother and stepfather started a small candy company, which they initially operated from the garage of their home. Dean was employed in the family business from its inception, and he helped to make the candy with his younger brother. Eventually, Dean graduated high school with a stellar report card. He was known to be a loner, but he seemed to be a normal, family-loving teenager at that point in his life. Eventually, the family moved to the outskirts of Houston, Texas. Dean's mother and his stepfather divorced, and in the wake of the divorce, his mother started a candy-making business of her own, called Corll Candy Company, and Dean was made to be vice president of the company. During the first year of this new company's operation, a young male employee complained to Dean's mother that Dean had made unwanted advances towards him. In response, Dean's mother fired the teenage employee and kept Dean as vice president. Soon after, in 1964, Dean was drafted into the U.S. Army. It was here in the Army where, allegedly, Dean realized that he was gay. Friends of Dean's back in Houston noticed after his service was over that Dean acted differently around young men. His mannerisms seemed to have changed. But to them, he was still the same old Dean. After Dean returned from his enlistment, he reassumed the position of vice president of his family's candy company. As the company expanded, they moved locations and ended up relocating right across the street from a local elementary school. Dean would frequently hand out candy to the local children, and in particular to teenage boys. This earned him the nickname of Pied Piper or Candyman amongst the local youth. In 1967, Dean befriended a 12-year-old boy named David Brooks. The 6th grader was one of the children Dean frequently handed out candy to, and the two quickly became friends. Dean gave David money whenever he needed it, constantly talked him up, and David said later on that Dean became a father figure to him. David would frequently spend the night at Dean's apartment, which he considered to be his second home, as his parents were divorced and lived a considerable distance from each other. At one point, facing hard times, the candy company closed, and Dean took on a job working as an electrician. And this was when the killings began. Between the years 1970 and 1973, Dean Corll was known to have killed a minimum of 28 victims. There is still the possibility that he killed more that are yet to be discovered. Dean's first victim would be 18-year-old college freshman Jeffrey Conan. Jeffrey was hitchhiking in the city, and it's likely that he got into Dean's car and was never seen again. Dean would torture his victims before killing them, oftentimes first strapping them while naked to a 4-poster bed. While the victims were strapped up, Dean would torture and assault them before moving on to the kill and eventual burial. The details of the torture methods Dean used are absolutely horrific and are too graphic to describe in this video. If you'd like to learn more about them, I'd recommend you look up the information on your own on the internet. At one point, a young David Brooks walked in on Dean assaulting 2 young boys that he had tied up to a bedpost. Dean told David that he needed him to be silent about this and said that if he remained quiet, he would buy him a car. So David remained quiet, and eventually Dean bought him a green Chevy Corvette. At this point, seeing an opportunity, Dean offered David cash in exchange for victims. Dean said he would pay David $200, which is worth over $1,000 nowadays, for every victim he would bring to him. And so David agreed and began scouting for potential victims of the Candyman. The bulk of these victims were buried in a boat shed in Houston, and although the address to the boat shed has been purposefully erased online, Courtney and I figured that this would be a great first place to visit when we were on the trail of the Candyman. Okay everybody, so in chasing the trail of the Candyman, this area right here is infamous. That footage that you just saw was recorded right in this area, because right back here and over here, oh, here comes a guy in a pickup truck. Here. Well, hopefully this person doesn't own the property or anything, but it was right here in this area. It was right here in this area where Dean Corll buried the majority of his victims in a boat shed. Now, I can't tell from looking online where exactly the boat shed was. There's no diagram or map, but it was at the corner of Player Street and Silver Bell in Houston, Texas. And that's the corner up there. But from online, it could be that shed over there, if you see that, because that's actually at the corner. But this complex behind us over here is a number of sheds with a smaller, lower roof, which is what I was thinking would be more likely to be a boat shed, because it's just it looks like more of an accessible storage place. I don't know if it got destroyed or not. I read online that it's been torn down. I read in other places it hasn't been. So it's kind of a mystery, but it was right here in this area where all of those bodies were discovered, 40 years ago when Dean Corll was caught, and actually when he was killed. Definitely kind of a True Detective vibe out here. And these animals are just odd too, you know. But we're off now to High Island on the coast of Texas, and that's where we're gonna go hunting for the lost bodies, the lost victims, and see if we can bring them any closure, get any clues as to where those lost bodies and victims might be, somewhere in the sand out on that desolate, dark beach. There's the Silver Bell Street, Player Street intersection. This property right here almost gives me the vibe of possibly being where he buried the victims, because these new owners have installed huge fences around it. Yeah. And there's a ton of no trespassing security cameras, almost to deter people that are interested in Candyman's story from even seeing the area or being
there's several fences up.
Yeah, they like, you know? There's a protective fence and a visual fence, so you can't even see inside. Yeah. I bet that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But you never know. It's really weird driving to all these places throughout Houston, because they all are so unassuming. You would never guess. I mean, like, look at this road. Show everybody. This is just like a road, you know, just a regular road in a big city. No one would have any idea that you turn off on this one side street that's very, I mean, there's like 2 buildings on the street. You'd never guess that a number of human bodies were discovered there, murder victims, back, you know, so long ago. It's funny how even brutal, dark history has a way of being erased and forgotten. Maybe it's a landowner who wants to sell the land, who doesn't want those stories associated with it. A house owner who can't sell a house where someone was murdered, so they tear the house down, build a new structure. A school where something happened, they tear down the school, turn it into a park. Yeah, you always, if you dig deeper into your communities at home, I'm sure you'll find dark shit, you know, it's everywhere. There's no place in the US darkness hasn't touched, that's what you could say.
True.
We're exploring today murder in Houston, and before we start diving into the Candyman serial killings, visiting his house, locations of bodies and murders, and investigating them, we had to stop by the most, I'd say, notorious house in the Houston area, the former home of Andrea Yates, the Houston mother who drowned all 5 of her kids in her bathtub, one at a time, and claimed that voices were telling her to do it, and she was being guided to kill all of her children.
Yeah, and she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. And I remember, I was just telling Colin that I was only like 4 years old when this happened, but I remember my mom watching it on TV. It was like one of my earliest memories, because it was such a huge thing in Texas at the time. So this is just weird, because I remember all of these little details.
And what's crazy is this year is the 20th anniversary of when that happened. It was June 20th, 2001.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get out and go take a look.
Yeah, somebody lives there right now, so obviously we have to be...
We're being respectful of everybody's privacy, but yeah, let's go take a peek.
Here we are.
Once again, it's just so strange that this is literally just the most normal neighborhood you can imagine.
Right? When we were driving through it, we were like, this, you would never think.
It's a pretty cute neighborhood.
And also, they were a very normal family, too. Like, everyone was very surprised.
Until the day that she snapped.
And her husband was at work when it happened, and he just got a call that she'd killed everyone.
The events of that day transpired right here in this house.
Oh, yeah. 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
And kind of eerily enough, there's a water...
We were saying
next door.
Get this weird synchronicity here. She drowned all of her kids in the bathtub. Water drowned them. The day that we visit, somebody's having a party at the house next door with a giant water thing.
What is that called? Like a water...
Like a slide, like an inflatable?
Yeah, a water inflatable.
But I mean, what are the odds that there's water? That's eerie,
yeah,
you know what I mean? With that being the house where the kids were drowned, 100 feet away, then a giant splash of water over there.
It's also weird, like when you go along this other side of the house and you see like windows and shit, she probably did it, like, somewhere within right there.
Yeah. Courtney just mentioned at that little party, right? You can hear kids screaming at that little party. And, you know, everyone who drowned that day was a child.
It's weird to think about.
But yeah.
I can't wait for you to show where they're taking her out of that little front hallway. There's, police footage where they're, guiding her out of the house right here 20 years ago.
And that really makes a person wonder if there's paranormal activity in a home like that where...
Yeah.
Because I've investigated many murder scenes before, but that, all 5 in a row, the terror that the kids must have experienced is just horrible.
The oldest one was 7 too. That's very old.
Yeah, you're conscious and able
you know what's going on at that point.
I wonder what the people who live there now have to say. But there it is.
There it is.
Strange that literally right next door, there's
a water
and right there like that, kids screaming.
That's so creepy. That's so weird.
And
it's weird just seeing it in person, knowing that this is this is one of the first true crime cases that I can remember from when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know those cases that you didn't know that there was bad people in the world, and then when you were little you hear about stuff like that. This was my first one.
After a while, Dean decided that he was going to need help in his murder scheme, and around this time, David Brooks introduced a young man named Elmer Henley to Dean. At first, Dean considered Elmer to be a potential victim, but as they talked, he realized that he would make for a great accomplice. He invited Elmer to become a part of the scheme, but at first, for months, Elmer denied Dean's offer. But eventually, after his family fell on hard times, Elmer accepted and began to find victims for Dean. It should be noted that at first Dean told Elmer that he was to find young men to be sold into a human slavery ring, not specifically young men for Dean to murder. If Elmer's eventual police statement is to be believed, the first victim that he assisted Dean in capturing was abducted from the Houston area in February or early March 1972. In the statement that Elmer gave the police following his arrest, he stated that he and Dean had picked up a boy and lured him to Dean's home on the promise of smoking some marijuana with the two of them. At Dean's house, employing a trick that he and Dean had prepared, Elmer cuffed his own hands behind his back, freed himself with a key hidden in his back pocket, then duped the young boy who they had brought over to the house into putting the handcuffs on himself as some sort of party trick. Quickly, after the boy had used the handcuffs to lock himself up, Dean swept in and bound and gagged him. Elmer then left the boy alone with Dean, believing he was to be sold into the slavery ring. Sadly, the identity of this victim that Elmer assisted in the abduction of remains unknown. 1 month later, on March 24, 1972, David, Elmer, and Dean encountered an 18-year-old acquaintance of Elmer's named Frank leaving a restaurant on Yale Street where the young man worked. Elmer called Frank over to Dean's van and invited the boy to drink beer and smoke weed with the trio back at Dean's apartment. Frank agreed and followed the trio to Dean's house. Inside of Dean's home, Frank smoked marijuana with the trio before picking up a pair of handcuffs that Dean had left on his table. In response, Dean quickly and savagely pounced on top of Frank, pushed him onto the table, and cuffed his hands behind his back. Elmer later claimed that he had not known of Dean's true intentions towards Frank when he had persuaded his friend to accompany him to Dean's home. In a 2010 interview, he claimed to have attempted to persuade Dean not to assault and kill Frank once Dean and David had bound and gagged him. However, Dean refused and proceeded to inform Elmer that he had assaulted, tortured, and killed the previous victim he had assisted in abducting, and that he intended to do the same with Frank. The trio then headed out to High Island Beach to bury the body. Wait, did I just say High Island Beach? Oh yeah, that's another very important place in our story. Dean Corll and his accomplices buried upwards of 6 of their victims at High Island Beach, a remote beach located a good drive from Houston where the murders took place. After Elmer and David's arrest, they actually led the police out to the beach and showed them where they had buried bodies. But according to the two of them, the police didn't recover every body that they had buried out there. David and Elmer told police after they were arrested that they had buried the body of 17-year-old Mark Stephen Scott at High Island Beach. But to this day, his remains have never been located. After Hurricane Ike swept over the area in 2008, the section of the beach where victims were buried was submerged beneath water, just a stone's throw from where the water now touches the sand. Mark's remains are officially regarded as lost at sea nowadays, but it begs the question. It was claimed at times that there were up to 10 bodies buried at High Island Beach. Could there be more bodies in the area that the police still don't know about? We had to head out to that area to find out for ourselves.
Yesterday, the trail of graves took Lawman and Newsman to the southeast of Houston. Henley and Brooks said there were more bodies buried along the Gulf of Mexico. By now, the scene was becoming all too familiar. Shovels digging into dirt and yielding bodies. Heavy equipment was called in to assist in the recovery operations. Since there were few landmarks along the beach, Henley was having some trouble recalling the graves, but his directions did uncover more human remains. The white of lime mixed with the red of blood, bones, bits of flesh, again the undescribable smell of a decayed human body. The operations moved down the beach. At one point it stopped beside this camper. A Beaumont family out to spend a quiet day along the Gulf learned that they were within 10 feet of another victim. As the digging started and revealed the remains of still another body, the family packed up their camper. Yes, they had heard about the mass killings, but to learn that they were at the same spot where a teenage boy had been buried under 2 feet of sand. The Beaumont couple and their son headed for home.
Okay, everybody, it's Colin here.
And Courtney.
Good afternoon. We're currently very East Texas, actually right next to the ocean, following the trail of Dean Corll. So last night we were going to come out here to this beach, High Island Beach, and do a paranormal investigation, but when we checked into our hotel, the woman at the front desk told me that it's dangerous at night out here, and somebody recently had seen a naked guy like following them in his pickup or something like that. And so we just decided, a little too sketchy to come out here at night when it's going to be windy either way. We were going to do some dowsing rods, but I just forgot that it's so windy at the beach. We're here right now because Dean Corll, his accomplices, they actually came to High Island Beach, this specific beach, in the midst of their murder spree. And this was where they buried a number of the victims' corpses. And it's always intrigued me because police ended up digging, it says a different number in every report, but 6 to 7 bodies here. Some even say 10 bodies, but I think it's at that 6 number. And a couple of the victims, their bodies were never found, even though the killers confessed to burying their bodies here at the beach. So either the bodies are still somewhere here in the sand, they've just never been located, or hurricanes like Hurricane Ike have come through, and when Hurricane Ike hit this area, it actually submerged the part of the beach where they were burying these bodies underwater. So there could be, bodies buried under the water out there. Or they just, washed away to sea, which is what most likely happened. But there's still some energy here. It's definitely a funky beach. There's like oil rigs on the beach.
I've never seen a beach like this before. There's not a lot of people out here. And it honestly, this sounds like weird to say, but it honestly looks like a perfect place to hide a body. There's like not a lot of people out here. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And it's just like land. On the drive up here, it's literally just fields. It doesn't even look like you're about to drive up to a beach, but it's very different.
And you get here to the beach. Yeah. But right now it's about 98 degrees outside. It's 1 in the afternoon, so it's the hottest time of day, but we got to get going to our next place. We're gonna do a spirit box in the car because it wouldn't matter if we're outside of the car, standing right there or in here, but it's just gonna be too hot and too bright to even see what we're doing if we go outside of the car. And then I'm gonna get out and take you guys around and show you what it's like out here before we leave. So yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Okay, everyone. So we got the spirit box right here. Let's do this. Okay, to anybody that's here, if your body is still somewhere in the area, we're calling out to you. I know you can hear us even though we're in the car. Can you tell us yes if you're still here? Are you still here? Is your body buried somewhere on the beach? Do you know the name Dean Corll?
Were you murdered here?
Do you have anything to say to let us know where you are or where we could find you? Okay, so we just did that for like 20-30 minutes and not one voice the entire time on AM and FM. No radio frequency at all. Just silence. Which is crazy. It's kind of what I figured it would be like out here. especially if the body washed away, you know, it's just lost forever. I don't think that it's buried up here just because the hurricane took over that part of the beach where they had buried the bodies, but still eerie to think that they never found somebody, a murder victim.
It's really sad.
And you never know, they still could be out here, but I guess it's just a mystery that they'll never have an answer to. Okay, everybody, so it's very bright out. You can see the sun. I can't see shit on there. Maybe you can see it. The sun is actually directly above right now, but this is the beach. This is High Island Beach on the Boulevard Peninsula here in Texas. This is where Candyman came to bury the bodies. Now, I looked and I researched a lot online. I couldn't figure out exactly where the body dumping and burial took place, because there used to be apparently a boardwalk or you know, one of those platforms that goes out over the ocean, and in the pictures you could see that walk in the distance while they were digging up the bodies. And this seems like a natural place for one of those to have been. You can see, I'm trying to get a shot of it, but I literally cannot see because it's so bright. That looks like foundation. I don't know if you can hear my voice because it's windy. That looks to be foundation from the boardwalk. Let's say that went out here. That means that Candyman would have been burying bodies somewhere down this stretch of the beach, which would make sense because it's not too far of a drive. Back then this was pretty remote. I should add, it's also interesting that I think it's this, yeah, it's right here. Look at this. This is an old abandoned highway in Texas. The water levels kept rising up here. Hurricanes ravaged the area. This section of the highway actually just crumbled. So this is an old highway that people used to drive on. But now it's just straight up rubble and ruin. Yeah, and then you got this creepy cross from Hurricane Ike. Just kind of an ominous way to be welcomed to a beach, because you pull off right here. You're met with this almost death cross honoring people who died in Ike, I believe, and healing. So yeah, I wish we could do more, but unfortunately we can't. Also, this hat that I got at a gas station yesterday, little tight, doesn't really fit on my head, but still pretty sick. Wanna go swimming? I'd be down, honestly.
Go do it then. You won't.
Really? Should I? Shit, where's my swimsuit? Okay, everybody. So I did promise that I was gonna go into the water. If you want to see me do more stupid shit like this, let's get this video to 5,000 likes and I'll start adding in more scenes of me embarrassing myself being stupid. Where the hell do you even get in? That's creepy, honestly. So many rocks there. Oh, you see me trip and fall? Mm-hmm. This guy stepped on a huge pointed rock and I thought I cut my foot.
You look cute.
Thanks, that was deceptively dangerous. At one point, it had been years since Dean Corll, the Candyman, had been abducting and murdering young boys in the Houston area, and he now lived at a location on Lamar Drive in the Pasadena, Texas area. This home had become a house of horrors. Dean had custom tools and devices that he would use to torture and murder his victims with, but Elmer and David were beginning to feel like they had had enough. Over 26 victims later, Dean's final victim would be a 13-year-old boy from South Houston named James Stanton Dramala. James was abducted by David and Dean while he was riding his bike through Pasadena. and he was then driven to Lamar Drive and Dean's house, upon the pretense of collecting empty glass bottles to resell. At Dean's home, James was almost immediately tied to Dean's torture board, assaulted, tortured, and then strangled with a cord before being buried, once again, in the boat shed. David later described James as a small blonde boy, for whom he had bought a pizza, and in whose company he had spent 45 minutes before the youth was attacked. This brings us to the night of August 7th, 1973. Elmer, aged 17 at this time, invited a 19-year-old acquaintance of his to a party at Dean's house. They went over to Dean's, smoked, drank, and hung out for a while, then left to grab sandwiches. On the way home, Elmer noticed that a 15-year-old girl who was a friend of his was outside of her home. She was upset, and she had been beaten by her drunk father earlier that night. Elmer invited her to join them for the party at Dean's house, and she accepted. The three then went back over to the Candyman's home. Upon arriving, Dean was visibly upset. He told Elmer that because he had brought the girl over, he had ruined everything. After he calmed down a bit, Dean offered the group marijuana and beer, which they gladly accepted. The three then drank, smoked, and huffed paint while Dean watched them until they all three eventually passed out. At one point, a short while later, Elmer came to. He was lying on his stomach, and Dean was snapping handcuffs on his wrists. As he looked around the room, Elmer noticed that his two friends were bound with rope, gagged with tape, and were also both lying face down. Dean removed Elmer's gag and told him that he planned on torturing, assaulting, and killing all three teenagers, noting that Elmer had blown it bringing that girl. Elmer began to protest to Dean, and Dean then dragged him into another room, put a pistol up to his stomach, and told him he could kill him right now. Elmer then told Dean that he would willingly participate in the assaults and murders with him if he would just let him go. Eventually, Dean agreed and freed Elmer. They then went into the other room, where Dean instructed Elmer to cut the clothes off of his young teenage friend. He began, but at this point, he felt something else inside. This was too far. Thinking quick, Elmer then grabbed Dean's pistol and shouted, "You've gone far enough, Dean." As Dean lifted himself off of the victim he was currently torturing, Elmer stated, "I can't go on any longer. I can't have you kill all my friends." Dean approaches Elmer, saying, "Kill me, Wayne." Elmer stepped back a few paces as Dean continued to advance towards him, all while Dean was shouting, "You won't do it! Kill me!" Elmer then fired a shot at Dean, which hit him directly in the forehead. But the bullet failed to fully penetrate Dean's skull, and he continued to run towards Elmer. Elmer then fired another 2 rounds, and the bullets hit Dean in the left shoulder. Dean then ran out of the room, hitting the wall of the hallway. Elmer fired an additional 3 bullets into Dean's lower back and shoulder as he slid down the wall in the hallway outside of the room where the 2 other teenagers were bound and screaming. Dean died where he fell, his naked body facing the wall. So obviously the house where the Candyman killed many of his victims and the house where he was murdered himself is important to the story, right? Well, we knew we had to pay it a visit while we were in Pasadena. Let's go to that footage now. Hey everybody, it's Colin here.
And Courtney.
It's really bright outside. Oh my goodness.
We should step under like that tree over there.
Yeah, let's go into the tree. Okay everybody, Colin and Courtney here. So since we're on the trail of murder in Houston right now, and specifically we're on the trail of the Candyman, we couldn't tell this story without visiting his former residence where he was murdered and where a number of murders happened, his torture board, everything. We're actually here on the street right now where Candyman's house was, Dean Corll. And we're gonna walk over right when we got here.
There was an ice cream truck that drove by.
Yeah, which was just weird. Like, when was the last time you saw an ice cream truck?
And it said "Caution Children" on it, and he killed a lot of like young boys, so it's just weird.
What?
No.
Ice cream truck drives "Caution Children"?
Yeah, caution children. Little kids have been murdered in this neighborhood before.
That was insanely creepy.
That's
That's
weird.
Candyman's house right there.
Yes.
And that little jingle. What the hell?
And first I just looked up and it said "Caution Children" with a creepy little thing, and I was like, and I heard the jingle and noticed it was ice cream, but what the hell?
Wow, that is bizarre.
I haven't seen an ice cream truck, first of all, in forever.
No.
And then the first time we see it, it's in front of the Candyman's house.
That's bizarre.
And there's also people parked in the front yard.
Yeah, there's a ton of people around, but it is interesting because this is actually where Dean Corll was murdered, inside of this home. And like I said, a number of the killings happened here.
Yes.
And there's a tricycle out front, which is weird. It makes you wonder.
I wonder if they know. They have to know, right?
Yeah, it makes you wonder if the kids know that
They're living in a
murder house. But let's do it. I mean, honestly, this whole story is incredibly dark.
It's really crazy.
And I mean, we could do a whole podcast on it, but we've already done Texas. But
we should do like a bonus one.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
really
down.
crazy.
It's spooky, isn't it?
It is. It looks like such an innocent little house too. Like it doesn't look like anything bad ever happened in it. But I feel like that's with most houses.
Yeah, it's weird when you like just don't know the history, you know? Makes you wonder if they do. Let us back up. Let's go down the street. Hold up, I gotta get a shot of the house.
There's just sketchy that they're
We came all the way here, but
pretty out of the way too.
that was very strange. This is just I can't tell if anyone actually lives in the Candyman house.
They do, for sure. There was like a tricycle out front and there was like bird feeders and stuff hanging from the thing. Also, somebody pulled in the driveway. They were kind of looking at us and someone else.
Okay, but there are two guys just sitting in front of the house and they were staring at us in like an old car.
Yeah, they were.
There it is. You got a tiny look at it. Yeah, it was interesting to see his house. Sorry I didn't get a clearer shot there, but that was a creepy little moment though.
That was.
The dudes there were like in their car, like looking like this at us.
They were fucking evil-eyeing us.
Yeah, like actually like.
That was so.
And the guy turned around.
Where am I going?
Straight.
Yeah, he was like, his head was like turned around evil.
Yeah, just staring at us, and I'm like, I got my camera.
Which I don't know if he lived there or not, but he was parked in front of it, so like, and he was just sitting there. So obviously it was two guys.
Yeah, that was eerie.
Yeah, I did not think that was a good idea to stick around.
And this leads us to the end of the story. Elmer and David were arrested immediately, and they both told the police everything they knew. They led police to the bodies, they gave the police the names, and they told the police why they had engaged in these crimes. But Dean was murdered before he was ever reprimanded. He died before he could be tried and convicted of these horrific crimes. To this day, nobody knows why he did it. And that's why we decided the best way to investigate the Candyman was just like in the movie, to summon him to our apartment. Well, it's finally time. So I'm here right now in my apartment in Austin. We got a camera right there. We got a camera right there. I'm about to attempt to summon the spirit of Dean Corll, the Candyman. Because there was no place to really ghost hunt for him or try to get these answers, why he did what he did. If there are any other victims out there that haven't been found yet, I figured that the best way to try to talk to this guy was to use these tools that I have here and try to bring him here. And it's almost kind of like the movie Candyman, where you say Candyman's name 5 times and then he appears. And here I am trying to summon another spirit of a Candyman, but the real one. So I'm obviously not a big spiritualist practitioner. I've studied witchcraft, I've studied the occult. I actually studied that in college. I took a class with a professor from Gothenburg, Sweden, who taught me a lot about the occult. But I'm kind of using techniques from a collection of different practices, and I'm just going to try my best to see if I can get Dean to come through, the Candyman himself. So we've got a couple different things going on here. I'm going to set up Dean's little altar right there, and I've got this black salt that I purchased from a metaphysical shop, and I'm going to sprinkle that around myself to protect myself from any energies that may want to come through. I've got this voodoo water, which they use a lot in voodoo ceremonies, and people have different opinions on it, on what it does, but we were just with Bloody Mary and she was using it in a conjuring ceremony, a seance, so I figured I might use it as well. I've also got, I'll show it over here, this bag of sand collected from Dean Corll's body dumping site in High Island. Then I've got right here, some of it fell out when we were coming back to Austin from filming, but this is some collected dirt from the boat shed area and from Dean Corll's grave. So hopefully by using these materials that Dean has almost touched, we'll be able to bring him in further. Let's start this thing out. I got this chalk from Bloody Mary in New Orleans. She said to put some on your wrists, on your neck, on your ankles, backs of your ankles, and the back of your neck, and that can help to protect you. But like I said, a lot of different traditions use the pentagram as a summoning tool. So I'm gonna try to draw a perfect pentagram, even though I'm probably not gonna be very good at it. It's a little lopsided, but I guess we can try one more time. Here we go again, attempt number 2. Well, that's better than the first time. So, for this ceremony, I've already pre-written some questions to ask Dean. I'm gonna go down a list using the spirit box. You can see right here are my questions. Courtney's not here right now. She's working on the podcast. It's just me in the apartment, so any noises are gonna be organic noises. I also bought this tanzanite. I don't know if you can see it. This is tanzanite. This is a rock mineral that is supposed to be able to increase communication abilities with the spirit world. So I'm gonna put one rock in each of the triangles on the outside of the pentagram. Then in the center, we have Mr. Dean Corll himself. This is a printed photograph of Dean. You've seen it many times in the documentary. She would come through. So I'm gonna fold this up so it'll fit in here. Like I said, I don't know if any of this is actually gonna work. I am not an experienced summoner, but I'm always down to try something new. So here we go. I've placed Dean in the center. I'm gonna light these candles on each point of the star. Okay, I've got this. I've got this. I've got this. I've got the ovulus right here, spirit box right here, a REM pod. Let's begin the ceremony now. I'm also gonna leave this candle. I'm gonna light this candle in there in the center with Dean. I'm gonna light this one outside. All right. Going to place the dirt in the center. And a little bit of this sand. And now I'm going to light the candles. Just for a little bit of extra oomph, I'm going to use a little bit of blood magic, as some people call it. This is a diabetes finger pricker. I would not suggest doing this at home. Here's a little bit of blood. I'm going to drip it onto the flame in the picture of Dean. Okay, so now an important part of doing a ritual like this is setting an intention and what you want to get out of it. So I'm going to sit here for a second and call out to Dean. Dean Arnold Corll, I'm calling out to you. I offer this vanilla and this Florida water. Oh, I just saw a flash of light over there. For you to come. If you can smell this, if you can hear this, Dean, I want to talk to you. I'm gonna rub a little bit of this Florida water on my hands as well before we get into this. Dean Arnold Corll, I seek your spirit. Please come through and talk to me. Dean Arnold Corll, I have these offerings for you. Please come through and enjoy them and talk to me. It feels different in here. Weirdly. All of a sudden. Dean? Are you here with me? There's like a energy coming from this right here. It smells funny too. Dean, I'd love to talk to you. I'm gonna turn this REM pod on now. Dean, if you're here with me, can you give me a sign? I just want to talk to you, Dean. Can you blow out one of these candles if you're here? Okay, Dean, if you are here, Dean Arnold Corll, I just want to talk to you before I start using these devices. I would love for you to show me, since I've brought you here, a sign that you're here. Could you blow out one of these candles for me? They're burning pretty fast. This one's already halfway burnt. Come on, Dean. You here? Okay. Okay, did you catch that? Hold up, hold up. Okay, I don't want to leave the circle. Oh, Jesus. Okay, look at that. Oh my fucking God. Here's the ring light. This is the ring light right here. That just flickered. That literally on camera just flickered. This thing, it didn't turn off. It just flickered. None of the candles are burned out. Holy shit! Come on, Dean. Are you here? Okay. Come on, Dean. Are you here? Okay. That kind of scared me a little bit. Okay. Whew. Well, I don't know if that was just technology messing up, but very crazy timing, very crazy. I mean, I asked for a candle to be blown out, but the light flickers, which is strange. I don't know if that's paranormal or not, but I will say this thing has flickered time to time in the past, but still very weird timing. I guess maybe it's time to use the devices. Okay, well, everybody, that was a little creepy, seeing as I'm alone here. Shit, what do I do? Okay, I'm gonna turn on the Ovilus. Wishing character. Wishing character. Yeah, I am trying to wish a character here, summon a person, which is what's interesting. Now, that was creepy with that light. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. I did not expect that. That is not pre-planned. The light is sitting right there. I don't have a cord to pull on. It's plugged into the wall. Cow. Okay. So I'm gonna use the spirit box now. and start attempting to talk to Dean. I'm going to go down my list of questions. Dean Corll. It said computer. Yeah, I am using it. This thing said computer. Yes, Dean, do you know what a computer is? I'm going to use that to try and talk to you. I'm going to go down my list of questions right now. Dean, am I talking to Dean Corll? Yes or no? There, maybe? Yes or no? I heard almost a yes. Can you say it clearer? Yes? I heard a little. Okay. Yes. When did you die? It said faster on the ovulus. Want to go faster? Thought. When did you die, Dean? 15, almost. Hot? I heard hot. Oh. Okay, Dean, it was hot out when you died. How did you die? At home, I heard. Chest. Right when I said, how'd you die? It said chest. And I believe he was shot in the back, chest area. I heard chest on here too. Easy. Easy, he said. Oh! It just said it's easy on the radio. Right when this said easy. Okay, we've got something intelligent here. Dean, were you a murderer? Fire, it said. Yes, there's fire near where I called you to. Were you a murderer, Dean? I heard you. Why did you kill those young boys? Why did you kill them, Dean? School? Something? Why did you kill them, Dean? Run from me, almost?
To be safe.
To be safe? Did you want no witnesses? That's why you started killing them and it became something more? I just heard a scream.
So how did
He stays these days? You killed them to be safe. Does that mean you didn't want witnesses? I just heard a weird voice right there. Okay, we'll move on to the next question, Dean. Did killing the boys make you feel good? Every time I just heard. Did you ever feel bad about what you were doing, Dean? Of course. Okay, elaborate. You felt bad. What did you feel bad about? That was a weird voice right there. One more time. Why did you kill the young boys? Murder! Murder! You just heard murder. Murder. What about murdering? What about murdering did you like? Another scream. Enjoy. What did you enjoy about murder, Dean? Endings are still quiet? I don't know. Did murder make you feel good? All of them, I heard. All of them. Oh, that's creepy. That means he said every time, all of them. Are there more victims that haven't been found by the police yet, Dean? A lot, I heard. Yes. Okay, Dean, one more time. Are there victims that have never been found yet that you murdered? I feel, honestly, a cool breeze from right here. Dean, are there more victims that... Are there more victims that people haven't found yet? Yeah. Since your answer was yes, Dean, where are the victims that haven't been found yet buried? Years ago. Where are they buried, Dean? How many victims have never been found, Dean? One. I heard one. Are there more than one victims that haven't been found yet? Good voice right there. Are you happy with the fact that you killed a bunch of people? Are you happy with what you've done? Yes. Do you have a message for me, Dean?
This is a genuine...
What was? What's the name of the victim that was never found? All right, Dean, I want to ask you another question. How many people did you kill in total? Dean, how many young boys did you kill? Same voice. Dean, where did you bury the victim that's never been found? The water, I heard. Another two voices that sound like him. Do you have a message, Dean? I don't know what that was, but there's two or three? Are there two or three victims that were never found? There is many. I'm going to ask you one more time, Dean. Why did you kill them? Why did you kill your victims?
Fritz.
Did you just love killing? Naturally? One more time, Dean. Where are the victims buried? Noah. All right, Dean. Is there anything else you'd like to do? Anything you'd like to say? It does feel colder outside of the circle. I will say it's kind of strange. I can feel it almost like this. I'm gonna ask him a couple more questions. Would you kill again if you were given the choice, Dean? Buried all in one location? Okay, well, we got some really interesting responses. I'm sure that there were more that I couldn't capture with my own ears, but I got, am I talking to Dean? Yes. When did you die? Hot. He died in August, so it was hot. It's the hottest month of the year in Texas. How did you die? Heard at home/chest. Were you a murderer? Mm-hmm. Why did you kill those young boys? To be safe, murder, enjoyed, and then still quiet? Did it make you feel good every time, all of them? Did you ever feel bad about what you were doing? Of course. Are there more victims that haven't been found yet? A lot, yes, yeah. Years ago? If the answer is yes, where are they buried? Heard something random that I'll have to look back through. The water? How many victims have never been found? 1, 2, or 3? There is many. Are you happy with the murders? Yes. Do you feel bad at all? Do you have a message for me? Nothing. Typical, that's what I would have expected. He died before he had to talk. He doesn't have to talk in death. He's not going to talk to me. Don't think I'm crazy for doing this, guys. I'm just genuinely trying to get some sort of an answer here, and this is the only way that I could see fit. Well, real quickly, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on this automatic writing where you sit, close your eyes, and just write whatever comes to mind. I wanted to do this with Dean. I'm just going to sit here. You can believe in this or not. I don't really care if you're online watching this video. I'm just going to write whatever words come to my mind. I know I'm already influenced by thinking about him and all that, but this is going to be the very end. Okay, well, here's what I got here. I honestly just wrote this from my mind. I don't know what the hell this means. It was a very controlled segment inside of me. There were times when it wouldn't stop. The dragon always seeks a sword. Candy. So, I don't know what any of that means, but here's my writing. If you can see it. Interesting nonetheless. Well, before all these candles blow out, I'm gonna blow them out. Dean, you have to leave this apartment. Once I leave this circle, you have to be gone. I'm banishing you. You cannot hang out here. You cannot stay here. You have to leave if you're here. Thank you for talking to me, but you have to leave now. So leave, be gone. I cast you out of this apartment. Goodbye. Okay, y'all, that's about it. I should say also that I have some sage and some Palo Santo that I'm about to cleanse myself with to end this, just for you guys online that are going to be worried about me. I have that stuff left over from a video we just did. So, yeah, interesting results though. Kind of eerie. And to release Dean, I'm going to light him ablaze.
At the end of the day, this is a horrific case. It's shocking, it's sad, it's infuriating, and there are no answers. But at least we know that Dean Corll is dead and his shocking string of crimes have been over for a long time. But who knows? Could his ghost still be haunting that Pasadena home where he was murdered? Are there more victims that the police and public still don't know exist? Those are questions to which we'll never have answers. But either way, we wanted to end this video with a final trip to Dean's grave.
Once again, here we are at the grave of Dean Corll. You've seen everything we've done in that documentary. We've been to the beach, to the boathouse, to his house. We've done a lot, and we've chased this trail. Maybe we came into contact with Dean, maybe we didn't. You never see a serial killer or a killer in general buried outside of a prison graveyard. Now, because Dean was never, officially tried and convicted, he was murdered before anybody even knew what he was doing, really. He's buried here in this plot where you can visit him. And usually we like to bring flowers to the dead. We always end these big episodes with bringing flowers and a loving tribute to those who lost their lives. But today, Dean Corll receives no flowers. This man was a killer. He was a murderer. He was an attacker, a victimizer. Dean was not a very good person, as you can tell from this documentary. And well, we don't ever want to go to a gravesite and disrespect the dead. That's not what we do on this channel. We don't do that at all in life, because it is a person who died. But we're not going to lay flowers down today. We're going to leave Dean where he is, here in the ground, and just hope that he's out there and that he's serving some time wherever he is for these horrific crimes that he was never held accountable for while he was here.
This is an image of the last unidentified victim of the Candyman. Authorities in Texas are asking anyone and everyone if they know who this person is. If you live in Texas, share this image with your family members, see if they possibly know who this is. And if they do, report it to the address or number listed below. Hopefully, there can be some good at the end of this video if we can help identify this final victim and allow them to truly rest in peace.